Everybody loves a vegetable garden, and those of us that really are into vegetable gardening want to start our own transplants. And so we're nearing that time frame where it's going to be that time of year where we're going to want to start our own transplants from seeds. So when do we start our transplants? Well, what we want to do is we want to look at our average frost date, and that's usually going to be middle of May for central Nebraska, towards the end of May for western Nebraska, but know when your average last frost is. And then you want to give yourself about a week buffer so the soils are a little bit warmer before you go ahead and put those transplants outside. So you find that date and then you count back 6 to 8 weeks. So most of the time for central Nebraska, we're going to be starting those seeds indoors about the end of March, beginning of April, and a little bit earlier if you're in eastern Nebraska. So with those seeds, we want to make sure that we look at our seed packets and we kind of sort them. We want to take a look at those packets and determine, is this something that I want to direct seed into the garden? Let's say like our squashes and cucumbers. Is this something where I want to start a transplant like our tomatoes and our peppers? Or is this something that's a cool season crop that I can put out earlier, like our peas? And once we have our seeds all sorted, then we're going to take a look at the seed packet. On the back of the seed packet, it's going to give you instructions on how to start that. Sometimes they need to be started in a special mix, a seed starting mix. Sometimes they need to remain damp. Sometimes they need to just have different requirements for them to get these seeds off and going. But we want to make sure that we have everything that we need before we start those seeds. Most of the time when we're starting seeds indoors, we do want to have a little bit lighter seed starting mix, so that way those seeds can germinate up through that mix and not have those issues with those heavier soils. Also, when we have that, we want to make sure that we provide supplemental light, and we want to have that light down as close to that plant material as possible. If we don't have that light source close enough to those little seedlings, what's going to happen is those seedlings are going to try to stretch as they look for light. And as they stretch, they get tall, and as they get taller, they start to flop over more readily. So we need to make sure we bring that light down closer to that seedling. There's lots of different options, whether you start them in a cell pack, whether you start them in a flat. Some will recycle containers and start them in there. Just make sure that whatever seed starting container you use, that it's cleaned out and that it's disinfected, so we don't have to worry about carryover of diseases or different things on that. We want to make sure that we keep that potting mix, we keep that media moist, but we don't keep it overly wet, because oftentimes with new seedlings we will get a fungal infection called dampening off. And with that dampening off, what it does is it causes those seedlings to die at the soil level and they flop over. So we need to make sure that we take a look at those watering practices. As those seedlings begin to grow, we raise up where that light source is at. We sometimes will put a fan on them so they get used to some wind and they get a little bit sturdier. And then as we get closer to that date, we want to make sure that we know when we're going to plant them outside. And then we want to harden them off by putting them in a shaded location, kind of protected, for a few days up to a week, to make sure that those plants are not going to be shocked when they get into full sun and wind. So we want to make sure that we harden off those plants, or at least provide some wind protection as well when we plant them into the garden. But the main thing right now is taking a look at the seeds, taking a look at when you're going to be planting outside, check your calendar, and then move that date back 6 to 8 weeks and go ahead and start those plants inside. It's a great opportunity for you to try some different varieties and some different cultivars that you want to plant in your garden this year.